Hello, I'm Jodi Ginsberg of Ginsberg Law Offices. Today I want to talk to you about specifically when a case does settle with a Medicare Set Aside, an MSA. In certain situations, you will have to have a Medicare Set Aside on your settlement, either because you've applied for Social Security disability and you're in the Medicare system already, even if you haven't been approved for it, or because you've settled your case over a threshold number and have not had an open medical clause in your settlement, or do not have a certain portion of the lump sum being set aside in the settlement documents for the State Board of Workers' Comp. So when you do have an MSA, let me explain what that means. Specifically, it is a situation where you will settle your workers' compensation case for a lump sum of money that can go to you, and you can be in charge of how you wish to spend that money. And the other piece of the settlement has to do with the MSA, the Medicare Set Aside, which will be based upon an estimate typically done by a third-party company that will look at all of your medical records and prescription drug records and do a projection of what the cost might be into the future for your medical care. Now, the MSA can be a projection, and that can be settled with your workers' compensation lump sum, so that if you settle a case for X amount of dollars and an open medical, an MSA, then you will have to control that Medicare set aside, assuming you are capable of doing it. And each year, in most cases, you will get an annuity. You will get a certain amount of money to put into that MSA. It is set up with a separate interest-bearing checking account with your name on it that says Joe Smith Medicare Set Aside or Jane Smith Medicare Set Aside. And in that circumstance, you are responsible for keeping track of all the medical expenditures that you use for your workers' compensation injury, and keeping the receipts, the doctor that you went to, and the CPT code that is used, making sure it is a Medicare reimbursable type of expense paid for by the Georgia fee, under the Georgia fee schedule, and you will administer that and do a report to CMS, Center for Medicare Services, on a yearly basis. It sounds complicated, but obviously when you are under our care, so to speak, in our office, we will guide you through it and help you to understand how you must get through the Medicare set-aside process when and if you settle a workers' compensation claim. Now, the Medicare set-aside amount can be done in two ways. It can be an estimate, as noted by a third-party company, that is put into your settlement, or you can wait on the exact amount, wait to settle the case, and then CMS will approve that exact amount. If it's done on the estimate, then what we make sure is that we have documentation in the settlement beforehand to state that the workers' comp insurance company will continue to be responsible to increase that amount if needed by Medicare. In other words, if they come back and say, well, wait a minute, that $50,000 in medical is not enough, it needs to be $75,000, then workers' comp insurance company would be responsible for continuing to pay that amount. By the same token, if Medicare came back and said it should be a lesser amount, then you wouldn't get quite as much in the Medicare set-aside. So it is a bit of a complicated process, and people must understand the ramifications of having a workers' compensation claim and when or when not to apply for Social Security disability, because those two do not always work hand in hand. If you'd like to discuss more about this or would like clarification on it, please do not hesitate to call me at 770-351-0801.